Neeblet going up against Zest just around the corner as we are preparing ourselves for a big game here at the WCS Global Finals. So winner of this will join Dark through to play at BlizzCon next weekend in the top 8 of the tournament, getting closer and closer to the World Championship trophy. Welcome back to the couch, everybody. This time, still joined by the same people. We have Nathanias, Todd, and Roddy. And indeed, this is a big game. Everyone's very excited for this just because it is Neeblet against another Korean player. He's on a roll recently. It's the same player that he beat and already played at Kesper Cup just a couple of weeks, a month ago. I mean, what else can we really say about this? This is a perfect second match for us to watch.
Yeah, I'm really excited for it. I mean, Neeb's PvP has looked incredibly good. In the last 14-15 series he pretty much played, he lost one best of one, but he showed us just 2 days ago that was, you know, that's a best of one. Stuff like that can happen, but in a best of 3, he still looked so good. Even when the opening didn't really go his way, it's just a control. I was talking a little bit with Showtime about it as well, and Showtime is like, well, most of the time when I play against Neeb, we do the same thing, and then it turned into a Tempest War just because Neeb doesn't really make a lot of mistakes. And the same goes for most mirrors, where attacking is very hard, especially into units like a Disruptor, because the Disruptor will sit here and it will shoot. And you can only walk away. You can't really walk into it, or you can shoot your own Disruptor. You're always going to be late. So unless you have a super fancy play, if you do the exact same thing, it's just hard to attack into your opponent. And it just seems like Neeb almost does not make any mistakes with Disruptors. And that's that's the simplicity of it all. He just doesn't make a lot of mistakes.
And that's just how you define his Protoss versus Protoss. As simple as he doesn't make mistakes.
Yeah.
Well, to be honest, that's how you define most of his matchups, really. He's just solid the whole way. He's one of those few players that doesn't mind taking it to the late game almost every single time. And that makes him so scary. Like, when you have to face somebody like Neeb, you're like, what do I do? Do I rush and then risk having to face his perfect defense? Or do I go into the late game where he's going to be incredibly good?
Yeah.
It's a very hard choice to make, which Zest is going to have to make here.
Well, let's change our focus and look at Zest a little bit now here. And I want to bring up something that was already repeated in this tournament, is losing once against the non-Korean players. Okay, hold on a second. Losing twice, though, is something that just shouldn't really be happening to a lot of these players. And just thinking about this now, Zest already lost to him. Does he want to lose again? Surely not.
I mean,
obviously not.
It's the same thing that we were discussing with Stats, where Stats said that he would think it's unacceptable to lose twice, and then Artosis is sitting here on the couch just like, well, you can say that normally, but with the way how well Showtime played at PvP, it's actually not that unacceptable. It's obviously it would be a huge disappointment, but it's not something you can be incredibly upset about, because Showtime need these guys. They're just so damn good in PvP that I think we almost have to drop the whole foreign against Korean thing, at least in that matchup.
Yeah.
Because these guys, they just know how to play PvP, and there is not much more to it.
Yeah, it's really awesome to follow this too, because this is not only going to be, obviously one of the biggest matches of the day, but this could be the first matchup where we see one of these non-Korean players actually make it to the round of 8. We know that one will be coming from a later group. We don't know which one, but it's a very interesting thing to follow, because Neeb has come in here as this Titan, as the guy that's beaten Zest before. And a lot of people have put him up as that guy to do it. And I mean, you guys give me your thoughts on this, but I find this to be probably one of the closer matchups when we look at, because I think Neeb's got a better chance of beating Zest for sure than Showtime does of beating Bjorn or a Laser beating TY.
Yeah, I think so too. I love as well the difference, like from last year, where we had one single non-Korean who lost 0-3 in round 1.
Yeah.
To be able to see like these guys go head-to-head against some of the best Koreans is really, really cool. And I'm super excited to see how far they can take it. And this is what we get to find out about now. Neeb, in his first match, there was already that question of how well is he going to be playing this tournament. He's been fairly consistent as of late, but you know, he just came off another tournament. That was Sao Paulo, right, where he lost a little bit earlier than we would have liked him to, maybe. That was to Scarlet, I believe. So I was really wondering how well he's going to be playing, and so far he's been playing really well, but he needs to continue on that path here and take out Zest.
So a player such as Neeblet here, who doesn't make mistakes and is now the player to study when you're coming from the Korean region, how does Zest then approach this matchup? I mean, how do you play against a player who doesn't make mistakes? What's the best way to tackle this?
Well, I don't think Zest should worry too much about it. Maybe just more focus on his own play and believe in himself, because he's still Zest. He's still the player that wins at least one major tournament every single year, and this is the biggest tournament that we're going to see him in this year. A lot of money on the line, so there's a very good chance that Zest can reach that Zest godlike level, because if this would have happened in January and February, we all would have said that this would have been awesome if Neeb could take a map over here, you know? Yeah. So Zest is still Zest, and if Zest reaches like his final form, it's a little bit of a cliche that he's still a god himself, but it's like Todd said, attacking into a player like Neeb that doesn't really make a whole lot of mistakes and is incredibly good and smart with unit positioning and disruptor-wise is really hard. But going into the super late game against a guy that has more experience in that super late game than you is also uncomfortable, because Tempest-wise require like a different type of skill, and that really comes only with experience. But if you go up against somebody that has Tempest-wise every 1 out of 3 PvPs he plays, there's a good chance that he has a small edge, that he knows how to pick fights better and stuff.
And I don't think that Neeb doesn't make mistakes. I think he makes less mistakes than some of his opponents. So Zest maybe can focus on just trying to be solid himself and just play up to his full potential.
Yeah.
But yeah, like Roddy said, like if it goes to the late game, Neeb is definitely gonna be favored, I think.
Nate, talk to me a little bit about Neeblet here, because like, if you think about the big non-Koreans that we've had in the scene before, the Stefanos, the Naniwas, they've kind of always been there. Like, when they entered the scene, they came in, they were good at the very beginning when they entered. But Neeblet is a very different player like that, as in he entered as a Terran player originally, he wasn't nowhere near the top of the scene, and then within the last 12 months or so, he's just skyrocketed.
Yeah, he's one of those guys that's been so interesting to follow, because Roddy and I have mentioned this one of the first time we casted together, WCS America. He was playing in the round of 16 as Terran against Pol. Had actually a crazy series where he lost 2-1, almost beating Pol in that round of 16. Yeah. But he, in the last year or two, has really come into his own with the Switch products. He was one of the players that was also playing a lot of Legacy of the Void beta. He talked about this a lot in his early interviews this year. He was playing the beta before everyone else. He said his goal was to be just ahead of everyone because he had put more time in before everybody else switched from Heart of the Swarm. Since he knew 2015, obviously it wasn't going to be his year, since he was still, kind of fresh on the whole Protoss thing. And that's one thing he's really taken advantage of. And he just doesn't seem to get phased by too much. He has great practice partners, great friends, in the form of Scarlet. Some of these are top American players. And he's really, in my opinion, also kind of raised the standard for foreigners this year, and probably made everyone else a little more confident. The Koreans don't look so invincible anymore as they used to.
It's crazy to think that he is the youngest player at this tournament as well. He's only 18 years of age, and you think back, StarCraft 2, Wings of Liberty was released 6 years ago. He was 12 years old when the game was released, and now he is 6 years later. He's on the stage in the biggest tournament with a chance right now to beat a GSL champion, to beat a champion for multiple years. It's quite the story.
Yeah, it's a remarkable story.
Yeah, one thing to take in consideration as well, by the way, for Neeb, is that there's a lot of content on his PvP out there. Yeah. Kespa Cup, he played quite a few of those. Zest definitely spent a lot of time studying that, and there hasn't been like a super long time since Kespa Cup happened as well, so I don't know if Neeb was able to, refine his builds, find new ones that he's going to be able to keep Zest guessing what he's doing. So there is a little bit of predictability, which definitely can be exploited in StarCraft 2 from somebody like Zest.
And if there's one thing I do have to say about Neeb that has impressed me more than when I look at a lot of what other foreign players have been known for, it's that he is just so solid and all around. Neeb is not in any way a one-trick pony. He's not the guy that does the same thing every single game. We don't look at him like we look at, Stefano making the Roach Max a thing, or one of these like Swarm host players like Snoots. Like, well, what makes Neeb so special is he just plays extremely well. He doesn't have to do a crazy disruptor drop early on to get himself into a good spot. He doesn't have to do some crazy 2-base 8-gate to beat a player that's at this top level. Neeb can beat you anyway, any day, and that's what makes him such a threat. There's no, if I just be safe against this, I'm fine. It's like, no, you have to actually outplay the guy, and that's something we really haven't been able to say about a non-Korean player for a long time.
So from what I can see here and listening to it, I don't think I could say which one you think's going to win, because you've both kind of given me arguments on either side here. Kev, give me a winner, or who you think's going to win.
It's a super big series, and I think because of that, maybe experience can play a greater role than we think. Even though Neeb has had a great year, there were definitely a couple of choky moments, and a lot of people think because of Casper Cup he may have moved on. But I think this best of 3 on this stage, with this much on the line, I absolutely believe that Neeb will make it out of the group. But I can see Zest winning here 2-1, just purely maybe on micro and timing attacks.
There's a battle going on inside my head. The edgy me wants to predict Zest, and then like the generic me wants to be like, oh yeah, Neeb's gonna win 2-1 or something. But because of that, I'm gonna go against all of this and say that Neeb's gonna win 2-0 and just easy peasy against Zest.
Wow.
Well, the American in me, Todd, says that Neeb is going to destroy Zest, and it is going to be awesome.
Is destroy the world?
But I do like.
You wanna use?
I do like Zest though, so we'll give it a 2-1 victory to Neeb.
All right, thank you very much, gentlemen. Whew, big game coming up here. Do remember to join us on social media, hashtag WCS2016, and let us know who you think is going to win. Will it be Neeb or will it be Zest? The winner of this will go through to play live at BlizzCon next weekend. I hope you're excited for this one. We'll take a quick break. When we come back, let's find out who moves forward.
Heroes of the Storm. Prepare for Heroes Brawl, the new game mode that breaks all the rules. Rated T for teen.
The StarCraft II WCS Global Finals is sponsored in part by Intel, T-Mobile, NVIDIA, and Republic of Gamers.
Hey guys, welcome back to the WCS Global Finals. This is day number 3 down in the ESL Burbank studio. Martosis alongside In Control. And we're about to cast a player who wasn't born yet when we started playing StarCraft, but we can't take a map off of. That's kind of fun, isn't it?
It's just a weird thought. It's finally happened. Like, there's so much music that I was listening to when I was 12, and now I'm like, it's been 20 years. That's a weird thing to say.
Yeah.
We literally were playing this game before the two of his parents joined together and created the Neeblet. Which, by the way, I want to kind of put out there, this guy filed paperwork, folks. It's Neeblet. Wrap your heads around it, okay?
Yeah.
Broken couch analyst,
Let
supposed to be
it
all
be.
smart.
Neeb is no longer.
They're
It
like,
is Neeblet.
Do you call me Incon? No, it's In Control.
No.
And he's Neeblet. All right, deal with it.
You should take over.
I guess that's the introduction. We just confused the Germans.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on. Anyways,
The face of a man in a pause screen.
that was some good stuff right there. You call me Incon? No, you call me In Control.
Right, dude. That's what I hear every time. They're like, Rotterdam? No, man. It's Rotterdam.
You sound just like Colbert, man. It's great.
Thank you.
Okay, so guys, we have a quick little pause. That's what's going on right now. We'll get this fixed in just a second. I think it's sound issues. Not the biggest deal. This happens all the time. But anyways, it is a PvP between the best Protoss in the world, Zest. And he's been the best Protoss for quite some time.
Best Protoss in the world?
Yeah, I think you have to say it right now. But Neeb is here trying to prove this. Otherwise, he did beat Zest 2-0 at Kespa Cup. They were actually pretty good games. They were better than the games that Neeb played later on when he just crushed through stats and trap. They were like closer. And now Zest, you know, he knows the way that Neeb plays. There's so many PvPs in Neeb out there. So you would think that he's going to be really prepared for this.
Yeah, in fact, one of the coolest functions of this BlizzCon for me is we have Wax Angel behind the scenes kind of going to these guys, grabbing quotes from them. And it's on that little ticker there when the stream is running, and it's periodical. But I love, he asked them both. He said, what do you think of the other? And Neeblet has a lot of respect for Zest. He's an amazing player. But also Zest said, well, last time we played, he had a better understanding of PvP. Yeah. Put a lot of practice into PvP, and I'm coming in with a decent shot, is what he said, which is the Korean humble term for nerd, I'm gonna murder your face. So that kind of gives me that little bit of eeriness too when Kevin's out there and he's like, you know what? On this stage with this much on the line, I kind of like Zest's chances. Those are things working against Neeblet. There is definitely a feel of like the momentum getting bumped down a little bit. Maybe
And you know what? If he loses, here's the thing. He played... It was a really good match, I felt, against Patience. Like, he ended up winning. You could see It's like, okay, yeah, Neeb's a bit better than Patience, but it was pretty close. You know, it was a 2-1, and Patience was fighting well against Neeblet for quite some time there. And then I look at Patience and Zest, and I try to compare their levels in my mind. And while I feel like Patience is one of the better Protosses in the world and one of the better PvPers in the world, Zest is a better player.
Yeah.
Head and shoulders, right? And it's very true what Zest said. Neeb just knew PvP better than him in Kespackup. He knew PvP better than all of the Koreans.
Yeah.
And in fact, the entire meta, literally moments after that ended, you log on the Korean ladder and everyone's starting to use Neeb style instead of Adept style. And the whole meta game has changed because of Neeb.
And what a thing to say.
Yeah, it's so rare that you get something like that. But that's part of the reason why he crushed Kespackup. Is because he just had a better understanding of the matchup. But the matchup hasn't really changed that much since then. There's been like little tweaks and modifications, but it's not like Neeb's not coming in here with a completely different understanding than Zest right now. It is going to be, you know, no matter how you look at it, it can't be a blowout like it was before.
To play a little bit of the devil's advocate, but I actually do think this to be true, something that Rotterdam said on the couch that is actually very, very true. Late game PvP is a weird, fickle beast. Like in Tempest... I feel like to a lot of people, you think of a Tempest and you think of it as this like very generic A-move unit that's like you're going to shoot from a long distance. You don't have to really do much with it, but it's actually so incredibly not true. And Neeblet makes it look that easy, whereas a lot of very good Protosses do not have the understanding or the ability that he does. Now, of course, do I say that Zest is going to be one of those guys that's not prepared for this? No. But I also like what Kevin said when he said that the experience differential is going to come into play. And I do think that Neeblet trying to force games in that late game is going to have more experience.
Yeah, that's interesting. I want to talk about that more, but first let's introduce these players. In the top right, our red Protoss. It is Neeblet. And in the bottom left, the best Protoss in the world, it is Zest. Okay, but yeah, what you're talking about there, like if we do get into, you know, Tempest Wars, I would say that would favor Neeb a bit. He plays it a lot more. And it isn't easy because Tempests have the same range and they kill Tempests very quickly. So there's a lot of nuance to it that Zest might not be as comfortable. But when we look at the map bans, Zest banned Apotheosis and New Gettysburg, which are the two maps you're most likely to get to Tempest on. So he is broadcasting loud and clear. He doesn't want the game to go there. Because if you do, you're absolutely not touching those maps. Because, I mean, you play New Gettysburg in PvP.
It's going long.
90% of the time it's going to Tempest. Like, that's just the way it is. So Zest does want to end it before there. And that might give Neeb a little bit of an advantage because he's so good defensively.
Before we go too long, by the way, this is why they don't let me commentate that much, but I'm going to ask that our amazing production team shows another picture of Zest's face before we go too long, because if I saw what I saw, that is the Jaedong murder face. And if you ever wanted to know how important a game was, just get a look at that. So, like I said, you don't have to do it now, but please appease me. Show that face again. But right now, it's just a normal kind of SimCity 2 gates. We've seen Neeblet favor going at the ramp so he can pylon block so that absolutely no Adepts ever get into his base. I like that. Otherwise, you'll notice from Zest's base, the pylons are in a position that if the Adepts do get in here, he should be able to photon overcharge and then use a few units to chop them down. It's actually a very subtle part of PvP that's almost cliche between the two. They're almost like, oh, I'm not going to get Adepts into your base, so I'm not even going to try. But guys, if it happens, this game lasts 2.5 minutes and it's just completely over.
It's very true. Like, Adepts mow down probes entirely too quickly. You see Neeblet has opened with a couple Stalkers, so he's just going to chase the Shades around and not let anything happen. As long as you keep Stalkers on top of those and you have a Mothership Core in your main base, they generally don't do very much.
Wait a second.
Wait a minute, where is the Mothership Core? Oh my god, it was out scouting, and already Zest going to have a nice advantage here.
Yeah, I mean, not only did the Mothership Core come from a terribly long... I mean, it was out there scouting, doing something, looking for a proxy. But also, there's no probe at the top of that ramp, so... the game's not over, but 1 Adept for 4 probes, fantastic. A little bit of mismining time. It's just a good situation to be in. It's fantastic.
Yeah, this is exactly what Zest wanted to get done.
And a scout, not to be underrated.
Yeah, absolutely. He sees the Nexus timing. He sees that there isn't tech up yet. He sees that there's more Stalkers popping out, and that is a boatload of information. And look at the way that Zest reacts when he sees this. It's like, oh, you have Stalkers and an Expand. I don't need the Robo first. I can go directly into a Twilight. And he's getting a very quick Twilight here, out of which he can either go Glaives or Blink. Totally up to him. And going into the Robo afterwards.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing here, too, is, like, look at this. Neeblet lost 6 probes. Guess how many probes he's behind? Exactly. It's exactly 6 probes. Yes. So, I mean, it's when 2 players are
You'd
of
think that
equal
their
skill.
Nexuses make probes at the same rate.
Oh, Dan. Are you the tasteless? Is that what we're doing here? There is that Dark Shrine from Neeblet, actually. If
I'm
you're
the
gonna...
Apollo. I'm like, well, there are 2 Adepts, and now 1 is gone. I believe there is 1 Adept left.
Oh, my God. Sorry, guys. It's like a stupidly inside joke, but I love it. He's going to shade forward, though, and he's going to try to get some probe kills himself. There's no piling back here. Stalkers and the Sentry woefully not great at killing this. Now targeting the Sentry itself, it's actually kind of pinned itself in that position. So a couple of probes and the Sentry, not bad. Now, the reason the Sentry's important, by the way, this is where we really break it down, Dan. It can't hallucinate to scout the Twilight Council and the potential for a Dark Shrine. Boom.
Yeah. That is a little bit scary right there.
It's a lot bit scary.
Zest not having the scout down, you know, he doesn't know exactly what's coming up. The thing is, Neeblet goes blink like every single PvP.
It's Zest with the Dark Shrine.
Yeah.
Never mind.
But
you could have saved me there, but you chose not to.
Well, I saved you by not bringing it up.
Okay.
I'm a true friend like that.
Just let me float further and further out in the ocean. You're like, you know what? I could throw out a lifesaver.
I just pretend you're not here anymore.
But then
I just
people
talk
would
over
know
you.
you're
I'm like,
drowning.
oh, wow, look at that. Right now we have a chrono boost on that blank. And the Prism's going across the map. Okay, DT warping time. Now, will this DT harassment get anything done?
No,
it doesn't have to get a lot done to pay off.
It does not. The nice thing about this is he's not going for like a 4 DT huge investment. Like this 1 DT is going to get in there.
This is really smart. The Observer is normally at the natural, so you make it come up, and then you send the second DT into the natural. Look at this. He's already set up an overcharge. 3 probes already gone, and he's running out. Here comes a DT into the natural. So well executed here by Zest. Wow. Really well done.
And now it's the 1 Observer trying to defend against 2, but the other one is going to get picked up and moved away, so he can kind of pseudo-reliably. Actually, he's just going to pull the probes and wait until the second Observer comes out. But you can see he's already had his economy kind of attacked here, and he's going to be behind a little bit there. This does enable Zest to make some choices. Does he want to go for the faster third, knowing that his opponent's going to have a tough time with that? Nope. It's going to be a gateway explosion. He's going to say, you know what are some of the ways that Neeblet can try to get back in this game? Well, he's going to chrono boost out probes, so he's going to have less army. But if he goes for that third, that compounds that issue, and all of a sudden it becomes, well, you're just dead.
Yeah, if you're going blink versus blink and one of you has more stalkers, that's probably the guy that's going to win.
I like this. Zest just goes for both. He's like, you know what? How about I'll just be richer, and I'm going to kill you.
Yeah, it's going to be nearly impossible to kill him. And while we see that Neeblet is, in fact, going for disruptors, which he is specifically very, very good at using, like, disruptors don't do as well against blink stalkers. Like, yeah, they force him to blink, but you're not going to, like, guarantee a quick victory because you have 2 disruptors against a big blink stalker player.
Exactly right. Artosis, this is an important scout here coming out from Neeblet. He sees that third. It's a little bit curious he's not going further into the base because he would want to know that there is 5, even 6 gateways behind that. Of course, that doesn't necessarily make it so he's like, oh no, I can't take my third because he'll attack. At this point in time, it becomes a little bit like, well, okay, he's ahead. That's just the way it is. But the kind of nice thing about disruptors is they're a little bit of an equalizer in this matchup. It's like, I can be behind in harvesters, I can be behind in upgrades, but if I can land a couple of good disruptor shots, or heaven forbid, they don't have disruptors and I'm the one that does have them, then all of a sudden you can buy yourself some time or make up the difference with a big hit.
The Defender's advantage that disruptors offer is so massive in PvP that you definitely can turn things around, but this attack is coming in hard and fast.
Good scout, though. Like, just sees it.
That is a lot of sentries in there to help manipulate everything. Where are these disruptors for Neeblet? Already just pushing forward into this third base.
And the blink goes forward, actually. A huge one. Good separation. Only gets 1 stalker. That's not the connection you need. At best, Neeblet's going to lose this third. At worst, he just loses the game right here. There is a Warp Prism behind this for Zest, so keep in mind, he does have the ability to resupply, and that, well, geez, that Disruptor just doesn't have a shot, but it was a little bit towards the front. Gonna get blinked on, and it's dead. And with that happening, I don't see Neeblet getting out of this. I don't know how he would.
There's just about nothing he can do. He has to hit, like, a ridiculous Disruptor shot, but Zest is sitting here waiting for it. He has blink. Okay, he gets 3 of them, it looks like, but that is about it. And with the double Immortal, another Warping of Stalkers, and these good blinks, the probes have to be pulled, and that means that Zest is just about to win this game.
Masterfully played by Zest so far. He's using that Warp Prism to defend against the Disruptor, nullifying the advantage of having those first couple of Disruptors out. Tapping out does Neeb here, and it means that Zest is going to go up 1-0, but just I mean, you want to it's almost eerie. He talks about his understanding of PvP coming into this being much sharper. He was ahead every single phase, like the Adept phase, of course. Well, let's call that luck even. Let's say Neeblet gets a little bit unlucky there, but going with the DTs, not over-investing into it, getting just a little bit of economic damage in there, and then following that up with a very smart timing attack saying, you know what? I'm predicting you're going to take that third, because very rarely does a player get behind economically and be like, well, I'm going to 2-base all in. Like that seems like a weak choice. So going for the third and trying to hope for something like a Disruptor play to get you back into that game seems very predictable. Well, with early Blink Stalkers, good Warp Prism play, you can actually jump on those 1 or 2 Disruptors and get a win for yourself.
Absolutely the case. Like, I love how crisp the execution is of Zest as well. Like, the 2 Adepts, he did that perfectly as soon as he realized that, oh, these Stalkers got a little bit behind the shades, and maybe the Mothership Core is out of position. Even if it's not, it's okay to finish that, harass a little bit, and try to get out. He escapes with one after getting a bunch of probes. You know, the DT harassment, we really went over that pretty deeply about the way that you split them up, and he drew around that Observer perfectly, delayed a lot of mining time, and as you said, the finish, it was just like awesome the way that he did it. This is like Zest. If you want to study a Protoss player in the world, it's Zest. This is why we call him the best player. Like, he just, everything he does is so fantastic, and I have to ask myself, is Neeb a little bit shaken by, like, we have never seen Neeb lose a PvP like that. In the last months, he hasn't had a loss that looked like that.
If we have, it's been very few. And to your point, that this is where we start to see. And again, this is kind of the really cool narrative that is following us throughout BlizzCon. There's just so much on the line, so much money, but it's the end of the year mega big tournament. Can he rally back? Neeblet here with that flag over his shoulder, going up against Zest, one of the absolute best Protoss players on the planet Earth, or as Artos is saying, the best. It's going to be a tough rally.
Well, if there's a Protoss that can take him out in PvP, it's this guy in the top left of King Sejong Station. It's Neeblet. But leading 1-0 with a perfectly played PvP, the best Korean Protoss, it's Zest.
There's that murder face.
Yeah, the Jaedong murder face. Why don't you explain that for us real quick, because it's actually really cool.
Well, yeah, there's the PG-rated version of this. He had a very intense look on his face when he competed in Korean, particularly.
Yeah.
And one reporter asked me, like, what's going on?
For those of you who don't know, Jaedong was the best Zerg ever in StarCraft 1.
Mega legend. Really great guy.
And even got second place in World Championship StarCraft 2. One of the greatest that we've had in this game as well.
Took his success here as well. But they asked me, like, you look really intense. What's going on? He says, well, one of the ways he kind of keeps his mind sharp and ready in competition mode while playing is he repeats over and over again, I'm going to kill you, while he plays.
Yeah.
And for a Korean to say something like that, that's very unique. They'll look intense and like, well, what are you thinking? Like, I just got to try my hardest, stay within myself. Jaedong's like, no, I'm trying to murder this guy.
And his playstyle really reflected it. Like, he would just do everything so sharply and so perfectly, and we saw that out of Zest. You can tell that this means a lot to him. He wants to be the world champion. He wants to be remembered for all time within this game. And truth be told, he has that type of skill, too. He's that type of crazy talent where we're like, how are you even this good?
Yeah.
And that game really exemplified it.
He's been that way for a couple years, too, which is really incredible. In StarCraft 2 in particular, it's kind of hard to remain consistent because the patches have been pretty severe. There's a lot of meta shifts, so to stay on top of all that with just raw skill is quite difficult. But Zest is one of those guys on that short list that's been able to do that. Now, one thing I kind of want to point out here, too, Neeblet going with the same wall-in. I almost just glossed over this analysis last time because I didn't anticipate it being a big deal, but ended up being a very big deal. 2 Adepts killing 6 probes. There's 2 ways to take that for Neeblet. You can either be like, okay, that happened, I got unlucky, a little silly mistake, not going to worry about it. Or there's the unraveling, like, I can't believe I made that mistake. I can't believe I threw that game that way. And you start to fall apart. Now, we don't quite know where Neeblet is at that stage just yet. We talk about his success throughout the year, but he's actually lost a few finals. He's actually, a lot of success is like, hey, good job, you made top 4, but he did lose to people that he is probably better than. So right now, at the end of the year, we're now at the end of October. It's time to see, is Neeblet developing into that kind of guy that can rally back from those mistakes, or does it define him?
Well, it looks like he's playing a lot more carefully this time. He spread his Stalkers that time, and he actually moved the probe up the ramp to make a pylon to block those if they had finished.
Still scouting, though. I mean,
that's being more careful, though, with the probe on the ramp.
Yes,
so.
To your point, Artos, you're exactly right. And I actually like seeing that. A lot of players would, like, full-on KG backup, like, probe on the ramp, mothership back at home, I'm not going to do anything. But he's saying, no, I need this mothership core to scout. This gives me great intel. He'll actually often float that all the way into the main if there isn't 2 Stalkers and just recall out. But as this is, he's just going to back up. They quite a bit of damage, but not enough to die. No.
That's really low.
But he's fine.
Yep.
He's fine.
You don't need a lot of health on that thing. It's always kind of staying in the back anyways. Looking at the tech paths, looks like Zest went into, because he didn't get the Scout this time. This is important, guys. He went into Robo and then Twilight, whereas last game, of course, he was able to finish the Shade, see the base, and went Twilight first. And you just want the Twilight first because Blink is such a long upgrade. That's the only reason, whereas Robo is a little bit safer.
And Neeblet is able to, again, just kind of say, yeah, I did get DT'd last game, but I'm going to follow my Twilight Council up with that Robo. The remaining true. Usually, even in that timing, by the way, your Observer will get out before Dark Templar show up, but if it's like Mega Fast Dark Templar, you get a little bit problematic. It's just saying, you know what, I don't think Zest at 1-0 is going to go for mega fast ET and sacrifice things like that Robo.
Yeah, that's it's not really that popular of a build.
No.
With how well Zest played that game and how much he crushed Neeb, I think that probably he's kind of gained some confidence and probably thinks, okay, you know what? I can actually play a slightly safer game here and probably have the same results.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's actually going to be true, to be honest, because the reason he won that game is how sharp he was with everything.
Well, I do like the confidence you're talking about, though. I mean, going up 1-0 in a best of 3 does have to feel great. Because there's even the momentum of like a best of 5, best of 7 when you go up like 2-0 or something crazy like that, but then you lose 2 in a row. A lot of times that does so much damage to your psyche that it gets really hard to rally back. But we're going to see some of that next weekend at BlizzCon, guys. Longer series. It's going to be pretty intense and amazing. Hopefully you'll join us for the entire journey. Now, Neeblet is going to move out here. You can see, again, fairly similar supplies across the board. Workers, Army, very similar. Upgrades, very similar. No Dark Shrine this time around. But Neeblet is adding a Gateway and moving out. And I mean, this is okay. It's going to sync up with his Blink, so it doesn't have to be a commitment. I like this as just a, you know what, maybe I can get a Nexus cancel or pick off a Scout or 2.
You know, he got Blink about as fast as he could as well, so he might be looking and saying, you know, even if he's going Blink, I could have it first. He comes down, no third base. He's not really going to be able to get anything done, though, because Zest does have more Stalkers, and his Blink is about to finish. So even attacking at this point could be dangerous, and in fact, he pulls back.
Yeah, I just love his commitment to getting that information. And look at how safe Zest is playing. Robotics Bay, Forge, all off of 2 bases. A lot of times Protoss pressure themselves to go for more, but we're seeing 4 more gateways as well for Neeblet. So, you know what? I'm kind of wondering if he's just going to go hard on Stalkers. Oh, did he not see the Robotics Bay?
I think he did.
Oh, he did? Okay, well, he did, but did he?
Yeah, did he click on it? Because you actually have to click on it there. That could be just about anything. Like a lot of these Protoss Warpins look exactly the same. So there's a possibility he's not exactly sure of what that is. But as you were saying, Zest playing a very, very safe game here, getting all of that off of just 2 bases. Does start on his 3rd Nexus, but slightly later than Neebs.
Zest's going to push forward and try to get similar information. He does not see the 3rd. And he does not have a hallucination or has not used it yet anyways. But he's going to put his own 3rd behind this, so he's, you know, in the same ballpark, and Neeb begins his Robotics Bay as well. So kind of funny. Last game was a much more definitive game from both players. Definitely Zest had an idea of how he wanted to secure an advantage and then built off of that. This game, this is what you would expect for the first game of a series between 2 players like this, where it's like, you know what? Let's go to that mid game. Let's see our tech pass. Let's feel each other out.
Well, this game is going to get into Disruptor Blink against Disruptor Blink, and this is kind of the interesting part, because if no one screws up, basically, it'll go into Tempest play. But the way that Zest normally plays situations like this is he'll do a lot of multitasking. He'll get a Prism on the map, maybe a Pylon on one side, split off his Blink Stalkers as well. Because realistically, it's about the Disruptor hits and less about the actual Stalkers themselves. They're generally blinking out of the way or seeing if they can snipe something if you're sloppy. So he won't keep his whole army together. That's just generally how Zest ends up playing. In fact, he's getting Warp Prism speed and a Warp Prism right now. So you can really see that he will be going for, although they'll be going for the same set of units, the way that Zest will play it will be different and more multitasking based than Neeb.
And that Dark Shrine, I love the Dark Shrine. It's a bit of a formality at this point. Most players do end up with a Dark Shrine, not necessarily as a, like, I'm thinking of some kind of Dark Templar timing attack, but rather it's just a good thing to have. If you don't have any detection at your 3rd, here come a couple DTs. If I can pick off the cannon in your mineral line and warp in some DTs, now I'm killing critical structures like your robotics facility, the Nexus itself, we'll see. Early Stargate there, and there is that Photon Cannon, by the way, from Neeblet. So he's going to want one of those at each base because that Warp Prism almost certainly is looking to deliver those invisible ninjas.
Yes, indeed. And, you know, this is kind of funny. Way back in the beginning of Legacy of the Void, when this was the meta game anyways of Blink Disruptor, there was a lot of 4 DT drops to try to counter 1 cannon and mineral lines. Could be something that we'll see out of Zest. I don't want to get too crazy with the guests here, but if he goes for something like that, he can still get a lot of damage done.
Oh my god, that's weird. I actually could have sworn Zest shot his Disruptor first. Sorry, that's like a really nerdy Star Wars reference, but in fact, it must have just been misdirected because Neeblet ends up scoring first blood there in that fight, which is a kind of a big deal because there's only the one other Disruptor on the high ground.
But at the same time, that Prism is out, and he did go for the 4 Dark Templars.
Yep, and there isn't. There is detection here. Never mind.
That is really funny.
Boom!
Oh my god!
And a Warp Prism dying with 3 DTs in it and 1 dying on the ground. That is a big deal. Actually, at all stages, it's a big deal. Obviously, if you open with that and look to be like, this is the whole plan, that's terrible. But even at mid-game, that's so much gas, so much resources. And knowing that Warp Prism's not out there is going to empower Neeb to go ahead and try to get some work done here.
It's especially really funny what we just saw there, because that was the one base he had an observer, not a cannon. If that had gone to a cannon base, that would have gone very well. But great defense by Neeblet, and now he's pushing into this 4th.
Why is the Mothership Core in the main? That's got to be something Zest saying. He's like, what is this nerd doing with his he's got
totally.
4 other, like 3 going on 4 other bases, and there's still the Mothership Core there.
That's funny, but I mean, that's the choice that Neeblet made, and now with that Oracle out, he's able to consistently see this army by tagging it, and it looks like Zest did shoot that time first, so that's for sure. I'm like watching now to make sure that we aren't having any Disruptor bias coming in here.
Yeah. Rigged game. No, not this time. That Disruptor shot pretty far away.
Yeah.
And this is the dance, guys. So what I like about Disruptor fights so much, too, is it's not really a question of who's going to hit who. You're both going to get hit. It's about mitigating those losses.
Yeah, that's why it's with Blink Stalkers, because they can just get out of the way. A Blink 4 there by Neeblet because the Disruptors were a little bit out of position.
Yeah.
The great amount of vision he has really paying off, but Zest is getting Observer speed, so that's another way that you can really spot your opponent's army and make sure you get those hits.
Love this move by Neeb. He's so good positionally. He's going to fight over to get to this right side, and all of a sudden Zest is like, well, in order to defend that, I actually have to come all the way around, and in doing so, he's walking into shark-infested waters where, like, is there a Disruptor behind? Is there a Disruptor in front? It gets really dicey. The Mothership Core will get shot down. It only gets the 1 photon overcharge off.
That's a pretty big deal. I guess he does actually go ahead and throw down the Time Warp as well, but a nice blink back here. A flank of Disruptors from Zest. He has a Disruptor in the front. Does get picked off. Oh, a couple big hits here from Neeblet. Another one from Zest coming up. He gets a lot of Neeblet's army, but still quite a bit left. Zest blinking forward, and it looks like he should be able to clean this all up.
Yep, Zest is going to go ahead and kill the entire army and take a 20 supply advantage. Disruptors by themselves, not going to be able to get it done. Even if they shot a shot, they would just get picked off most likely. He does get some damage in there, gets the Stargates, some probes, a Mothership Core, and of course a little bit of trade on the army, but I don't know that he can be super happy with how that went, obviously. He's down 24 supply, and if you look at that production tab, most of that is in army, almost exactly that.
Yeah, this is...
But only losing 500 more resources, actually, as pointed out here by our observer, that's kind of funny.
Yeah, it's always weird, these battles with the Disruptors, to see how they end up, but we just had Zest building a Colossus. Did he cancel that? No, he built a Colossus, so that's
the first Colossus of BlizzCon 2016.
I think you're right, actually.
And it's an accident, too. That's my favorite part.
Yeah, no, that has to be an accident. Like, the Colossus is not good against Disruptors. Like,
no, and it's
still a strong
too.
unit, but like it's only for timing attacks in this game, and those times have gone, so...
Okay. It can be a strong unit, but in this role, it's a complete turd. It's like...
I'm like, wow, that's expensive.
You guys remember me from 2015? And everyone's like, get out of here, you fool. You were meant to be a Disruptor. Big hit there, though. Neeb's got to be careful. He doesn't have the high ground. Blinks on top to try to get some vision. Blinks forward on top of the Disruptors. He needs to kill those because he doesn't have any blink. He's on cooldown right now, but he's pushing forward. It looks like both players are looking to trade armies.
There's only 1 Disruptor left. He blinks forward, kills it off, and is going after everything. It's Disruptors.
The Colossus dies.
Yeah, that Colossus, man. Not what it was meant to be. But right now, Zest has split off his army like we were talking about before as a group of Blink Stalkers on the left-hand side. By the way, he's the first one that's teching up into Stargate.
He is, and I don't know if Zest tried to get too fancy here. He's losing a lot of Stalkers over here, down 30 supply. There is a harass going on the left side. Mothership Core rolls in, still in the main, bro. What's up? You can't come into the main, Zest. The Mothership.
He's got an observer following it as well. That is a DT killing Mothership Core right there. Neeblet continuing to chase Zest back. Zest does have disruptors at home, so this isn't necessarily just going to kill him just because Zest just lost a big chunk of army. And this is the funny thing about PvP. Like, there are big swings if you get those good disruptor hits.
This is a huge swing. The single disruptor shot is a whiff. Disruptor of Neeb's going to try to zone out here. Can't really take this high ground. I say that, but I guess with all those disruptors, he might be able to.
Oh,
a couple of sloppy stalkers dying over there.
Yeah, a little bit out of position. The tag from the Oracle really valuable. A couple disruptors, as we saw there, in the natural, waiting for this flank that he's sure will come.
And now just disruptors by himself.
Oh! All right, well, he blinks forward, and one of them does go off, so a lot of stalkers go down, but he picks off all 3 of these, and now his own disruptor's coming up. Neeblet having a strong push.
I mean, this could be the end times here if you're a Zest fan in this game. Number 2, he's going to do a big warp in, has a disruptor come in, but it's wandering, it's lonesome, basically, dies for free. Neeblet has a huge army that did approach the mid-ground, so we're getting split up here a little bit. And this is where it can get really dangerous, Dan, by the way. Those disruptors, they land... Oh, God. And I was just going to say, they land big shots when you're trying to multitask across the map. Zest getting the better of it right now. He was down so much. He still is down, but he's starting to carve for himself a nice little comeback.
Yeah, disruptor flanks working out well for Zest when he can get them off. Some more disruptors being chased down here by Zest. He's definitely down in supply at the moment. Both of them taking huge chunks of the map. Really large economies and swings in these army values.
Disruptor games, I don't know. Maybe it's just because we're commentators or observers, but I actually really find them fun and enjoyable. Players
I like to play them, watch them, commentate them.
Every blink is a little gamble. They're like, good God, is there a disruptor over there?
It's like, oh, you had one coming in from behind. Uh-oh.
Yeah, he's like, and he knows everyone's doing the same thing too. They're all going, ah, and he's doing the same thing.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Well, you know, that's why they have these speed observers, the oracles out. Neeblet has really been on top of getting these tags. That one not as good, but
okay. Sorry. Oh, God, it worked. Nope. All right. Please, someone make that shirt.
Yeah.
The bumper sticker or something. Now, all of a sudden, Zest, by the way, so this is also happening. Zest is fishing a little bit. He's out there looking for big connections. It's cost him 4 disruptors, and now he's down to just 1 on the high ground, and that's a bit problematic. If he loses this base, that is the fight, that is the game, and disruptors can do that.
Zest actually is in a funny spot. Like, he's actually warped in a decent amount of zealots, and he didn't go charge. Neeblet did go charge.
Those are slow lots, then.
Yeah, those are
well,
kind
we've had
of trashy,
Colossus, an unupgraded Colossus, and now we've got slow lots. Is this actually Brood War?
Could be. It looks like Neeblet trying to come around once again. Okay, all of them die as expected to 1 disruptor hit because they're slow.
Though. He doesn't have a blink. The disruptor's going to come forward here. He does back away.
Ooh.
He gets the better of the exchange and should have a blink here now. So Zest is falling apart a little bit. He took a bad fight, and he was like, okay, well, now my disruptors have to make a miracle happen. The miracle so far has not happened. And it's weird to talk about it that way, because if you look at the map, by the way, equal bases, supplies, though, tell a different tale. Like, and we have the Stargates being added for Neeblet, by the way. He's progressing to that late game.
The longer we watch the game, the more you see that when they're on kind of open ground where there's a retreat path, Neeblet is gaining advantages. It's where Neeblet shoved into the natural. That's every time that Zest has gotten ahead, it's been right in that area where he's able to clean up. 20. So, I mean, a lot of zealots coming over from Neeblet as he does attack in that natural. Again, I do like this move a lot better. Man. His main army still in the center, waiting to make a big move.
Almost 40 disruptors have died this game, and with that one's death, it is actually 40. Tempest coming out for Zest, which is like nice, but individual Tempests don't really get it done the way you would want them to. Having the range is nice, but hitting a Stalker every once in 3 minutes or hitting a Disruptor doesn't do that much for you. And now taking the fight to the left side, he actually picks off the only pylon that has the strong warp-in ability, which means this could be a little bit of a dicey place, but it's actually, it might even just be 4. I would have killed that Nexus. I don't think I'd let that live.
A lot of destruction balls coming out.
Oh my God, the health of the Nexus! It's at 9! Come on, man!
Wow. Send just about anything in there to finish it off. Neeblet continuing to rotate back around and going towards this 4th base expansion.
And you know what? Artosis, I was talking about how Tempests aren't that big of a deal. Well, there's 2 of them now, and they're starting to add up their damage.
That is some consistent bruising going down on these Stalkers. Now, Neeblet is producing 3 Tempests right now, and last time I checked, 3 will beat 2, especially when you have those disruptors to stop any Stalkers underneath.
You're exactly right. And again, Zest starting to kind of win out the fight here in terms of Stalkers. Supply, though, still constantly in favor of Neeb. He's only ahead in 3 Harvesters, so his army's always bigger. It's just not necessarily here. Does lose his final Tempest, does Zest. And Neeblet's going to back up. And as you said, his Air Force will be stronger. He needs to make sure and be able to support that.
And Neeblet taking yet another base on the other side of the map, by the way. He has a lot of starports or stargates getting in these Tempests, and that's going to give him a big advantage. We have more on the way for Zest, but he's making Immortals right now, which is like the last thing in the whole world that he needs. It seems like he thinks it's going to be remaining on gateway units here for Neeblet.
Program Zest with a little bit of a mistake there. It's maybe one of the... Well, there's been a few mistakes this game, obviously, but this one is kind of a final one. And now with the higher count of Tempest, this should be forfeit. I mean, if Zest is going to fight here, he's doing it because there's no other option. This game's over.
There's really, it's better for him to just run around the map right now than actually engage. Just engaging it is the same thing as tapping out with a GG.
Yep.
Comes up, and I mean, he's getting done what he can with this big group of Stalkers, but it's really not that much.
No, it's just simply not. His Tempest coming out to an inferior fight. They're just being fed to the wolves, as it were. More Tempest coming out, more Disruptors coming in. And I'll tell you what, this has been a hell of a back-and-forth game. Zest was able to claw his way back in for a little bit, but he was just trailing so far. I think the really decisive moment was that fight on the right side where it just seemed like the reset to Zest's army. He wasn't able to come back. Zest taps out, and we do see Neeblet tying the series 1 apiece.
I do also want to point out that one of the great moments for Neeblet was when the Prism flew in with the 4 Dark Templars and he just crushed it.
You're right.
That is such an investment. The Dark Shrine, the Warp Prism, and 4 Dark Templars at that moment. If he had gone to one of the bases with a Photon Cannon, he does massive damage and gets ahead by that. Instead, Neeblet crushes it in a matter of seconds with the Mothership Core in the main base, and bam! Neeblet's in a great spot.
You just served up some mashed potatoes on the plate of what led us to this. Let me give you the meatloaf. The meatloaf was the splitting of the Blink Stalkers, losing the fight at the 12 o'clock, and then having them go into the natural on the left side as well, only to find 4 overcharged pylons and realizing he gave up a lot of supply, a lot of map control, and he went a little bit hard on that too. In that moment in time, it was like 3 warp-ins of Stalkers, so we had like 30 out there, and they didn't get the job done, and he fell behind in Disruptors, he fell behind in pretty much every respect.
Yeah, this is a crazy series so far, Jeff.
It has been.
We're tied up 1-1 right now. Really hard to say who's going to end up winning it. Neeblet and Zest seem to be quite evenly matched in the matchup. I felt like Zest played really fantastically here, but it just got into Neeb's territory where he is the best player in the world, which is Disruptor fights and into Tempest.
Yeah, it's truly a beautiful thing to watch the two of them fight it out like that. Neeblet, Zest, we're here. You guys are there. It's day 3. This is the winner's decider day. We are looking at only champions. All these losers will have another chance to fight their way out of this group and get into that round of 8. Yeah, it's tomorrow. I just said fight their way out of the group.
Yeah.
Brick.
All right, here we go, guys. In the bottom right, our Protoss player from America, it is Neeblet. And in the top left of Frozen Temple, our Protoss genius from Korea, it's Zest.
Give me that rage face. My God.
He is
smoldering.
Yeah, like he is focusing so heavily here. Neeblet really is proving, whether he wins or loses this, that without any doubt, I mean, we already knew he was one of the best PvP in the world, but he's just completely holding his own.
I know.
Like, he made a couple small changes from game 1, and yeah, everything Zest was trying was falling apart.
He rallied back. It is so funny. The 2012, 2013 me, if like, you know, Warp opened up in 2016, Jeff jumped out with Artosis. The two of us were fighting crime, obviously. That's what we use our time for. Yeah. But we're like, by the way, Jeff, Dan, in 2016, it's going to be the Koreans that don't want the game to go to the late game in PvP because they're afraid of some guy named Neeblet. And then, like, we jump back in through the portal. I'd be like, well, that was trippy as hell. I don't know what just happened. And those guys are liars.
Like, Jeff, I think it's time for us to go to bed. That was 2013, Artosis 2013.
How much peyote did they put in this Coca-Cola? But no, yeah, that's where we're at, guys. And it's what I like too. I'm watching you guys out there on your social medias and your live report threads. I'm always watching. People are like, okay, so Neeb got it done. Big deal, guys. Let's chill it out. No, showtime, getting it done.
Yeah,
and that's it. Now there's a couple
so far. So, well, I mean,
Nerdchi looked great.
Nerdchi
had a great series against TY, by the way.
We haven't seen the lasers PvP. We don't know. Maybe he can get it done too.
He laser. We did. Well, yeah.
Not as PvP. But guys, look. So for this third game, I think it's really interesting that it's on Frozen Temple because this map plays out differently than most maps because the natural expansion it's very thin right at the front where the ramp is.
Okay.
And concaves and force fields wreck that area. So a lot of times we do see things like rushes with a warp prism to juggle some units, sometimes immortal rushes, sometimes just stalker sentry. There's a lot of different cheesy, crazy attacks you can do here against players that expand. So anything could happen here. And in fact, Neeblet
Look at this.
Is being proxied right now. Zest has one out on the map.
Probably a Stargate. Could be something else, though.
Yeah.
But he, too, is doing something a little bit strange. He's actually going for a 3rd and 4th Adept. BlizzCon 2017, that's when I want us to step up the production again, and we would do somewhere we would cut away to our on-field reporter, Rotterdam, and he would give us a field report on what it means to go 4 Adepts right there.
Oh, when you go for Adepts, you can kill probes twice as well.
Yep. And we'd be like,
Thanks, Rotterdam.
Thanks, Kevin. And we cut away from him.
Okay.
And here's Laugh off in the distance. It'd be so beautiful.
Zest right now, he has 2 gateways being made in control. He has 1 up in his main base and 1 on the proxy. So he is actually 4-gating Neeblet. Knowing Neeblet was too young to play the game when 4-gate was the build in this matchup.
He doesn't know that it exists.
Yeah,
the thing is, Neeblet's going to chase him back, though. This is actually the kind of funny part. Well, if he commits to it, he's going to see no natural. He has to know that that means some kind of aggression's coming.
He's going to have to give up his natural.
So no natural. Goes up into the main. Sees only the 2 gateways. And actually, this pylon's a little bit out of his...
Oh, he cancels the warp in. I mean, that's really good building placement against it, so no big surprise he canceled that. Already forced 1 overcharge, 3 more stalkers being warped in right now.
Yeah, this is it's all on the line here through this aggression. Now, keep in mind, Neeblet he's from America.
God, is he going to finish that warp? He does! That is a big mistake by Neeblet. Warping right on top of Zest Stalker. He's going to be able to pick up a lot of free units. In the meantime, we do have a couple of Adepts in the main base that Neeblet will clean up without too much damage, but that means no pylons at the front, and this Nexus is for sure going to go down.
Really? You're going to do that? For sure going to go down? Well, we'll have to see.
For sure going to go down.
All right, looks like it actually might.
He did it! The Nexus will go down.
You're 100% correct. On the other side of the map, though, and Neeblet's got to get something done with this because he does lose that Nexus. He is ahead in tech. That's something to kind of keep in mind. But other than that, it's a little bit of a reset. You can see even supply-wise they're similar.
Look how interesting this is that Zest right now, with no expansion, is going into a Stargate. Definitely not what I was expecting.
It's scouted.
It does get scouted, but I mean, he's playing against someone that's just basically making immortals to stay alive. So I don't think this is that bad, especially considering he's already used a lot of energy. Like, you could go an Oracle and fly around and really make it very annoying. This is some cool play by Zest.
It really is. Ooh, got to be careful with that Immortal. Every Immortal super counts. Uses the Shade, by the way, to give spotting to the high ground so that he can kill that gateway.
Very smart
every decision
moves.
at this point in time becomes hyper scary. So Stargate either finished or was canceled. I think it just finished. And so far, nothing's being used.
Good force fields right there, trapping several stalkers, and is able to pick those off right away. A great move by Neeblet to begin fighting back against this. By the way, Phoenix is coming up, and Zest is taking an expansion.
Guess what, Artosis? 2 more gateways for our red Protoss Neeblet.
Yeah, he's
a Warp Prism. It's coming down. A Dark Shrine in the back of
just get everything. Gets his own Stargate. What is doing all of it?
On base Tempest. But Zest is going to continue to shade
One
forward.
base range Phoenix to counter the Phoenixes of his opponent.
Doesn't scout. Man. And there is that sentry there, by the way, so he is a little bit terrified of the fact that if he goes down that ramp, Zest could have the option to sever off half of that and really fight there. Does let it finish.
Oh my god. This is a big deal, and Neeblet is not reacting right now. He did this just as those Immortals were dropped off, so he's losing everything.
He doesn't see it.
Oh my god, and
he doesn't see it at all.
That's 13 probes, like...
No, he just doesn't see it. Now he knows, and he's like...
That is brutal. 15 probes going down because he was fighting the rest of the army. Like,
it's only if Dark Templar can win here, by the way.
Yeah.
That's what this game is about.
And he made a robo, so I think he actually saw the Dark Shrine.
No, he did not yet.
He did not see it.
He did not, but what he's doing right now is saying, what can I lose to? Well, there's a Twilight Council that's not building anything. It has to be a Dark Shrine.
Yeah, as long as he makes an Observer, he should be able to take this down very easily, but will he make an Immortal instead? Let's see. That Dark Shrine's about to finish.
His robo, or did it finish? It did finish, is that what you're saying?
The robo, he does have a
prism.
robo, yeah. But he's not making anything out of it. And actually, he might get the Warp Prism, which is a pretty big deal because there's nothing else to warp in.
Or just win the fight. Just going to win the fight.
Oh, okay. Well, Dark Templars are warping in.
They were.
Oh, not anymore.
Phoenix against the Robo, super smart call, by the way. It looks like he actually won't indeed win the fight, but he's took enough of the teeth out of it that I don't know how worried he can be. Like 2 Stalkers, an Adept and a Sentry. That sounds like map number 2 in the single player campaign, where that's the kind of thing you're playing with, but not against Zest.
No, 3 DTs walking past and the Observer isn't done. You know,
I mean, it will be though.
Yeah, like the DTs were actually closer than imagined to maybe screwing this game up for Zest.
You know what though? Just one Observer. If they split up, and they do, okay. And there's actually no army back here. There's no army back here. Going to work at the natural. Probe's starting to get chopped up. Zest, of course, realizing what's happening, but 2 DTs are inside the main as well. He is applying pressure over the natural. This game is going very back and forth. A lot of pylons here for the Photon Overcharge.
This is pretty crazy.
The natural's under a siege, by the way. Huge fight going on over here as well. Phoenix are going to edge it out. They're going to be able to get the win, but no detection.
Yeah, the Dark Templars are able to kill off these Stalkers, and the Phoenixes don't have a lot of energy. This is getting too crazy in control.
Pretty crazy. I still have to like Zest. I just don't know that there's any answer at all for those Phoenix. But 14 blue probes have been chopped up on the other side of the map. I think
their
the Dark
probe counts right now are, Zest is losing the probe count. You know, the counter to the Phoenixes are having them fly over overcharges until they die.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, if Zest has that kind of a brain fart, there's some kind of BlizzCon medic that gets over there and is like, all right, we're checking you for strokes.
But that's a Brood War unit!
So the game is going to calm down a little bit. Zest is going to secure him for himself an advantage. There's that worker advantage for him as well. And the thing about Phoenix is that in a low econ situation like this, they're going to keep going. You're going to...
Yeah.
We've seen how many probes are lost. Go ahead and tack on at least like 10 more. And there's just no way to stop it.
Well, how does Neeblet attempt to win this game is the question. Like, he does have tech for Archons, which obviously that's the one thing that Phoenixes can't do anything to.
Yeah.
Can he get something done with that?
It's
like,
scary.
He has a Twilight. You could go into Glaives, maybe?
I don't know.
And the thing is, his econ is so hurt, you can't really do much at all. Having active units at this point
We're going to have a depth of the
value.
natural. Phoenix are showing up inside the main where the motion core is waiting, but that means damage over the natural. The Stalkers and Archon do come back, but still 2-3 probes dying. Okay, well, Phoenix does die here.
Yeah, that's really good.
It's okay. It's just every time he loses 4 probes, now look at the supply differential of supply and workers.
You can never really stop his scouting either. Like, he'll always know what Neeblet's plans are completely, which makes it a lot easier. Normally what you have to do is just continually send out hallucinations in a regular macro game and try to figure it out that way, but this is just consistent harassment plus scouting. And when you have such low econ, it's going to be even harder now with having everything scouted to do anything to kill him. Feels like Neeblet just has to try to go into a long game.
That's looking like what he wants to happen here as well. He's getting Blink for himself. He is going to kind of poke out there and be like, come on, where is that gateway and pylon? I know it's over here somewhere. But at the same time, he needs to have some Stalkers at home defensively, which is not where you want to be, but it's where he has to be. I think if he just goes across the map fighting into Phoenix and a couple of Immortals, he dies. If he stays at home and takes a fast third, the poke out from Zest is going to be too much. So I do like his plan right now. It's to slow it down, chrono boost out those probes, get Blink for yourself, and get into the Disruptor game. Because, again, that is how you come back in a PvP these days.
Well, Blink is on the way for Neeblet, a little over halfway done. Just continuing to try to build his economy, but Zest is taking his third base. That third base is a great counter to someone trying to back it up into a longer game, because obviously he'll just have a bigger economy still.
That's how you smother him.
Now, Neeblet has not made another Nexus, so he still has options all in. Like, he could try a Blink all in or something, but against the Immortal count that Zest is building up in Blink, and as you said, there's still a few Phoenixes out there which are going to, you know, really be worth their weight in gold in any small battles.
In small battles, they pick up the 3 Immortals you have or whatever, and it removes just most of the damage you can do. Of course, as the armies get larger, their relevancy becomes less and less, their ability to harass. Like this move from Neeb, by the way.
Ooh.
Taking a sneaky third, a cheeky third, as Heroes caster Claris would say.
Oh.
Cheeky. Actually, that's Sean. The two of them really combined to do that.
Yeah, it's just like British people. They're like, oh, look at these words that we have that other people don't have.
Fancy. But I do like that. That is actually one of the ways to come back, by the way, is just to throw them off on the read.
And that's like the place, the top right and bottom left on this map are almost an afterthought.
Yep.
They are almost never taken in games. And
usually afterthought.
Because, like, the thing is, if they are taken, you just get there in, like, 2 seconds and kill it. It's so far off. But you never really even think of going there. And it is really smart. Now, will Zest actually send scouts out everywhere? Because the thing is, he has Phoenixes, so he might not.
Maybe.
You know? He's like, well, I already
As
see
the
everything.
game goes on, it becomes more peculiar.
Yeah.
But what I almost want to
so
see
much?
from Neeblet is I want to see him go take a third now or at a believable late time. Where he's like, you did so much damage to me, Zest, and I can't believe how late this third is.
Yeah.
And
I
Zest
like
over
it.
there flexing his huge pecs, and he's just like, absolutely, you're beneath me.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's the ruse.
You know, and what you say, however funny that it may be,
my God.
it's a really great idea to try to make him not scout this. But he recalls in with a large amount of probes, and it gets scouted immediately. Zest moving all of his units towards this base right now.
Yep.
Neeblet has to make a hard choice.
Yeah, I guess recall out and just
I
be
guess
like, you know what? I needed this to get me back in. You saw it. My best choice now is to recall back in.
Like, there's no reason for him to walk up the map to try to stop this, because look at his army. It's so small.
No, he can't. And we're in Disruptor play, by the way, which is his strength.
Yeah, he's doing 2 disruptors at a time. The funny part about that is he has almost no bulk to protect them. So once you dodge all the disruptor shots, you can peel apart his army. But, you know, he has a couple of mortals in there. He has some sentries and an Archon. So if Neeb just does some fantastic micro and good disruptor shots, he definitely can still come back.
You know what's the sign of a good solo caster, Dan?
What?
Someone that can make a point, talk themselves down, and then immediately follow it up by talking themselves up. He's got no bulk, but what if he does? You need to be here, man. You're just killing it.
Yeah, I wish I was casting alone. It would
It worked. Anyways, Zest pushing forward through these rocks, so that is the best answer, by the way, is to go for that scenario you were talking about. Blinks forward, he's got to be really careful.
Wow, yeah, that's a little bit crazy. And don't forget, Phoenixes are kind of a counter to Disruptors. Lifting them up is a great way to cancel those shots off.
They can pick them up.
So if he can, look at this, 5 mortals. I think he just flies in, picks up all the Disruptors, and ends the game here. Oh boy,
so
the Disruptor's being picked up right now. 2 more coming in from behind. He starts picking them up. In fact, canceling pickups. That's it, GG.
Nicely
Zest
done.
Takes out Neeblet 2-1. Pretty sick series right there.
Revenge secured for Zest, who did lose in Kespa Cup to this Neeblet. Comes back here at BlizzCon and says, you're going to fight for your life. Just to break down that, I'm sure the boys in the couch do a great job, but when you pick up a Disruptor that has launched its ball, not only does it cancel the shot, it resets the cooldown. So you're actually without that shot. It does not allow you to do it the second you're dropped again. So that's why that was really, really tough. Because Neeblet had shot off those shots, even if he picks off the Phoenix, they had already done their job. It was a suicide run of sorts. But beautiful play by Zest. Great series from these guys.
Yeah, and Neeblet doesn't seem too shaken, really. He's kind of got a smile on his face and everything. So we'll see what he can do tomorrow going up with a rematch against Patience, who he beat earlier. Neeblet definitely still has shots to get into that round of 8. First, we're going to go to a little commercial break. When we come back, we'll hear from Zest.
The StarCraft II WCS Global Finals is sponsored in part by Intel, T-Mobile, NVIDIA, and Republic of Gamers.
Earlier, we did see Dark move on to the quarterfinals, and now it will be Zest joining him here at the WCS Global Finals. So, first of all, congratulations. It was a very intense series you just played against Neeb. My first question, prior to entering this series, I'm wondering, Neeb is a player that has shown that he can defeat many of the top Korean protest players. He's defeated players like Stats, Trap, yourself, and Patience recently. So, I'm wondering, because of that, were you more nervous headed into the series, or did that actually make you feel more comfortable because there were that many more games to study from? 일단 오늘 경기 전에 일단 니브 선수가 많은 프로토스 선수들을 이겼잖아요. 근데 그것 때문에 좀 긴장을 더 하셨나요? 아니면 그만큼 더 연구를 할 수 있어서 더 편했나요?
원래 그 캐스파컵에서 경기할 때는 닙 선수에 대한 정보가 하나도 없었는데 이번에는 좀 VOD도 많고 그래가지고 좀 선수에 대해 파악을 한 상태여가지고 오히려 좀 편하게 임했는데 그거 감안해도 닙 선수가 생각보다 더 잘해가지고 좀 경기가 좀 치열했던 것 같아요.
So he says, when it comes to the Kespa Cup, when I played him about a month ago, I had no information on Neeblet at all. And because of that, it was really difficult. This time, however, as you mentioned, there was a lot to study from, a lot of games that I could look up his build and his style. And so because of that, I did feel very prepared. But despite all of that, Neeblet played so well. And I think that's why the series came tooth and nail as it did. So let's just jump right into talking about all of it, because there was so many great games. I just need to talk about King Sejong Station, because there was a moment that Neeb came straight into your natural, which was a very bold move by him. Did that make you nervous at all, or were you confident that you could defend? 그 두 번째 경기에서 그 얼음 붙은 상황에서 니브 선수가 앞마당에 다 들어왔을 때 네네 세종 네 죄송해요. 이제 들어왔을 때 앞마당에 들어왔을 때 걱정하셨나요? 아니면 수비할 수 있다고 자신감 있었나요?
일단 닙 선수가 원래 분열기라는 유닛을 공격적으로 쓰기가 되게 힘든데 공격적으로 너무 잘 쓰시는 거예요. 실수도 없이. 그래가지고 그때 들어왔을 때는 좀 당황했는데 생각보다는 그때는 잘 막아가지고 네, 넘겼지만 그래도 그 경기는 져가지고 네.
So he says, actually, Neeb is a player that's so good at Disruptor Micro. That's really what made it hard. And I thought that I actually was able to hold off his attack when he came in. But he uses his Disruptor Micro so aggressively, so well. And that's why I think that game didn't go in my favor. And of course, that last game on Frozen Temple was so back and forth, so much action going on. I'm just wondering, can you walk us through your perspective during such an intense game like that? 그 마지막 경기 얼음 붙은 상황에서 되게 액션 많았던 경기였잖아요. 그래서 그렇게 좀 어려운 경기 내내 무슨 생각이 드셨나요?
일단 제가 좀 원하는 상황대로 흘러가가지고 손쉽게 이길 줄 알았는데 생각보다 니 선수가 잘해가지고 좀 제가 좀 일찌감치 승기를 잡았다는 생각에 좀 방심한 것도 있는데 그래도 결국엔 이겨서 다행인 것 같아요.
So he says, in that game, especially at the beginning, I just felt like everything was playing out the way I had envisioned it to. But again, as I just mentioned before, Neeblet just played so well. And so the game got really difficult for me. And I think part of that also definitely has to do with the fact that I think I lost a bit of focus because I did think the game was just in my grasp. But despite that, I'm just really relieved that I was able to clinch that final game and take the victory. My final question for you is, we just saw Dark moving on to the quarterfinals. Yesterday, we also saw another great player, Solar, actually get eliminated. So based on all of this information and just knowing who the other players are, what are your thoughts on your toughest opponents left moving forward? 일단 그 방금 전에 박명우 선수가 8강에 진출했고 그 다음에 강민주 선수는 탈락을 하셨는데 남은 선수들 중에서 누가 가장 걱정되세요?
솔직히 딱히 그래도 그나마 저그 선수들이 많이 걱정이 됐는데 그래도 많이 떨어져가지고 네. 연습 때 기량만큼만 하면 충분히 잘 할 수 있을 것 같아요. 그리고 그 저희 한국 지역은 지금 새벽이잖아요. 그럼에도 불구하고 지금 저희 같은 팀 선수들이 많이 열심히 도와줘가지고 특히 성일이나 황강호 선수나 그 이동현 선수가 지금 늦은 시간에도 불구하고 계속 도와주고 있거든요. 그래가지고 그 그 친구들한테 고맙다고 한번 전하고 싶어요.
So he says, first of all, I'm just going to say that last part first because he was thanking a lot of people. He said as a last thought that there were so many people right now in Korea. It's extremely late, but despite all of that, he has so many of his teammates and just friends that were helping him stay up really late and giving him advice and just help when it came to the builds and advice and things like that. So he really wanted to personally thank them. And then when it comes to the players moving forward, the players he was most worried about were the Zerg players, but with Solar going out as well as other top-level players like Violet and True, he feels a lot more confident, and he feels like if he could just play as he has done in practice, that he'll be pretty confident moving forward and doing well here at the WCS Global Finals. So congratulations again, Zest. Looking forward to how you play in the quarterfinals. And with that, we have our second player secured in the top 8. It will be Zest.
Unbelievably good looking and incredibly skilled. Zest goes through as our second player to the quarterfinals to play at BlizzCon next weekend. Rightfully so. I think a lot of people expected these two players to be some of the first to go through, obviously being in Group A and Group B. That does mean now that Neeb will play against Patience tomorrow in the decider match to see if he can get towards BlizzCon next week. And let's talk a little bit about how that series unfolded now. Nathanias, Todd, and Rotterdam, or that's maybe a little bit confusing, Todd, Nate, and Rotterdam. The first map. Yes. Talk us through it a little bit, Kev.
Very sharp timing attack. It's kind of what I said in the beginning of the series. You know, I think if Zest is going to take this series, he's going to have to avoid the super late game, avoid Tempest Wars, avoid too much disruptor play, and try to get an advantage with sharp timing attacks. And that's kind of what happened. He, you know, he obviously was in a good position, did some economic damage, and he just followed it up with a very sharp attack when there, yes, was 1 or 2 disruptors. But that's not the disruptor count that Neeb is looking for. That's not the number where he starts feeling really comfortable and in his element.
Zest has been doing more and more of his DT drops, by the way. Like it's really coming back in fashion, and now that Protosses have gotten very good at picking up units from afar with War Prism, all these kind of War Prism attacks are so good. Like we saw it in a lot of those games. That was actually a sick shutdown there where he sniped the Prism plus a bunch of DTs. Then it was weird because I thought Neeb was doing well, but then he overextended big time over there. But somehow behind this, he still had a lot of army and kind of came back slowly in it.
Well, I think that Zest also let him get back into this game. I think this fight was definitely amazing for Zest, and he really created an advantage for himself. But then he did something we saw him do before, where he randomly splits off 14 Stalkers that start shooting at the rocks. We saw the one lone Colossus, maybe a misclick, but it didn't really do anything. And then suddenly his army was not that big anymore, only had 1 disruptor. Neeb blinked forward, picked it off, and then Zest just lost everything. I mean, in the end, Neeb played it beautifully once he got like 5 Tempers out and stuff. But I definitely felt that there was a moment where Zest was in control of this game, but then he made that random split up with the Stalkers again.
Yeah, and this was super high level, by the way. Like every single one of those blinks, every time were calculated on top of the disruptors. Like these guys here, they meet in group stage. If they meet again in the grand finals of the tournament, don't be surprised. Like, definitely have the potential to do so.
This was huge, though, when he lost basically all his probes at this point.
Yeah, this game was a huge anxiety attack for either fans of either one of these players. You have the big trades in the middle, the DTs barely being able to slip through the other side, but you mentioned it big time while he's doing all the micro with the Immortals and the War Prism towards the bottom of his main base ramp. He ends up getting into this crazy situation where all of those workers get caught. The hallucinated Phoenix immediately finds the hidden base that he's taken, and by the time that he's trying to get that third up, you know, he's not able to have paid for it. And the Phoenix picking up the disruptors, well, that's how you neutralize them. You don't have enough firepower to keep them out of the play, and you can't use your Purification Novas.
Yeah, I absolutely love this final game by Zest. Once again, he goes for a super aggressive opening, like a 4-gate. They were joking, like 4 gates. They were around when Neeb didn't even play this game, or he was 12, like you mentioned earlier, you know, when Wings of Liberty came out. But it's just so smart. He's forcing a different type of game, not the regular. We both take 1 gate, fast expand, we both go blink, we both go disruptor from this point on. And this is where Neeb shines. Like, no, let's make it crazy. Let's try to shut down your main. And even though he couldn't finish it, what's also really cool is that he shaded. I can talk about the last game for a long time, by the way, so just cut me off whenever you want. But like, he kept shading in with the adapts, right? First he picked off the gateway, and then he kind of threatened the sentries, but he never let it finish up. And then the one time when Neeb kind of just expected him to cancel it again. It's like, surprise, here are 4 adepts killing 15 workers. Then the 1-base Stargate follow-up, I think, is super good. Because like 4-gate can still lose against like 2-gate Robo, you know, if a couple of Immortals gets out. But if you get a couple Phoenixes, that's great. And then once it turned into an expand game, Phoenixes will always kill at least a couple of probes, so he made sure he kept his lead.
You mentioned that, but actually the move out that he went into where he caught the Immortals and killed the War Prism with the Stalkers was very important because the War Prism was very close to the base of Zest. If 3 DTs had been warped in right there, walked very fast to that Robo and sniped it, it's game over. Like, Neeb must win that game. So, clutch victory, I guess, in a way, for Zest, who was ahead, but definitely could have messed up to some extent.
I love the response indeed of Neeb as well. It's like, okay, I see your response to Stargate. That's very smart. Well, the only thing that I can do from this position is I'll go for a Dark Shrine. And we kind of thought that Zest knew because he immediately dropped the Robo. And he had an Observer, but it still took a while. And like Todd said, it could have been catastrophic if DTs just run straight in and kill it. And even in the end, the DTs, I wouldn't say evened up the game, but definitely made it a game again, you know, when he got like 15 workers or something. So it was just a sick PvP. I really enjoy games like that.
What did you think about Zest's comment in the winner's interview where he said that actually now that a lot of the Zerg players that he was worried about have left the tournament and have been eliminated, the Solar, the True, the Violets, that he thinks he stands a better shot at picking up the title now because that was his worrying matchup?
Seems like everybody here is really good at PvP. These have been probably some of the best games that we've been watching, like this series that Neeb played against Patience, obviously the series that we just saw against Zest, and many others. There's some of the Zergs as scary as they can be. It's kind of turned into that, the 2 lone Terrans, a lot of Protoss, and then, you know, pretty much Dark just being like the guy to carry it for Zerg.
It's interesting because he didn't even mention the Terrans. I thought that a player like Zest would be like, you know, it's nice that Solar's not here. I'm a little bit worried about Beyond, and that's the kind of response I would have expected. But he said, the Zergs are gone, I'm feeling great.
I think he probably sees his PvZ as maybe his biggest weakness. For some time, Zest was the guy early on in the year. Remember, he was like, what, 86% or something ridiculous. Against Terran, he just wasn't losing to Terran at all.
Yeah.
So no, I'm sure maybe it's a little bit harder, but compared to versus Zerg, like I think Zerg is one of the main concerns, not just from Terrans, but also from a lot of Protosses as of late.
Yeah, and
I think he mostly was thinking about Dark. I don't think he was thinking... I mean, Solar can obviously be very scary. I don't think he was super worried about a True or a Violet, even though he did drop 1 map, but that was Dasan Station against True. Like, I think overall, when you ask him about Zerg, he's thinking about the scariest Zerg, that's Dark, and he will say, like, yeah, I'm pretty like scared of Dark in a way, and he maybe phrased it a little bit differently, but I am sure that deep down inside, he's worried about Beyond and TY, because if he's not, then he's a robot, and that could explain his amazing body. So.
You did see on the side of your screen there as well the games that are coming up next, just 2 matches coming up very, very shortly. The next one is going to be Showtime versus Beyond. Neeblet is not out of the tournament yet. He'll be back tomorrow to go up against Patience in the rematch. You don't want to be missing that tomorrow. We're going to go a very quick break, and when we return, it's time for the German to see if he can continue in this tournament.